Welcome back to On Texas Football. I'm Jeff Howe, joined by CJ Vogel. Special edition of Longhorn Weekly this week, coming from SEC Media Days. I was supposed to be at our OTF setup, but actually right now, Bobby and Jerry are sitting down with South Carolina head coach Shane Beamer. So can't use that. So CJ and I are having to improvise a little bit. This edition of On Texas Football, this edition of Longhorn Weekly, is brought to you by our good friends at Flat Creek Estate Winery. We'll tell you more about Flat Creek here later in the show. CJ, it's been fast and furious this morning already. We've heard from Greg Sankey, the SEC commissioner. We've heard from LSU coach Brian Kelly. Shane Beamer's up later today. The big thing, though, is Texas goes tomorrow. It's Steve Sarkisian, Arch Manning, Anthony Hill, and Michael Taft. I'll start with the big question. This is going to be top of mind for me. Thing number one for this week for Texas. Have you gotten your head around what the Arch Manning circus is going to be like once Texas gets here to the College Football Hall of Fame tomorrow afternoon, Tuesday afternoon for SEC Media Days?
Not quite. And I say that, obviously, we were talking to a couple folks in the SEC media, talking about what that lore was like for Nick Saban when, the SEC Media Days was in Birmingham. Now that it's in Atlanta, Georgia's obviously going to be a big attraction as well. And big names have obviously been on both of those rosters throughout the last decade plus, in which there's been big draws and groups of fans and folks waiting to see those guys walk into the building, take some photos, sign some things. But for Arch Manning tomorrow, I'm expecting it to be as large of a conglomerate of folks waiting to watch and see him interact with SEC media as just about anybody in my lifetime covering college football. So it's going to be exciting. I can't wait. And I'm eager to see what he says about this 2025 Texas roster.
So along with the Longhorns being here Tuesday afternoon, again, they'll go through the whole car wash. They'll do the main media. They'll do all the ESPN and SEC network stuff. The other thing we get Tuesday, CJ, is as media representatives, we get our preseason all SEC ballot. Now, take it for whatever it's worth with preseason all SEC. You had a chance to see some of these SEC quarterbacks in Manny Passing Academy. There's LaNorris Sellers, Garrett Nussmeier. Diego Pavia is a proven commodity in this league. You going to go ahead and put Arch Manning first team all SEC on your ballot when you get it on Tuesday?
I'm not. I've thought long and hard about this. That's, I believe, a little disingenuous to the guys who have been out there and done this SEC thing before, right? Not to think that by the end of the year, Arch Manning won't be in that conversation. Or two, a DJ Lagway might not be in that conversation. Yeah. But I think you have to go with the guys who have been there and done that currently. I mean, I'm looking at LaNorris Sellers is probably going to be my guy. I like him just a little bit more because of that Superman ability that he showed in his game last year than a Garrett Nussmeier, who would probably come on my second team all SEC right now. That's kind of where I'm between, Jeff. But I do think it'll be a significantly different looking ballot towards the end of the year than obviously what this preseason ballot will entail tomorrow.
Yeah, for what it's worth, I'm on the Nuss bus with Garrett Nussmeier. Arch might be my second team quarterback. It's got an Arch and LaNorris. So we'll see how many spots we get. But for Arch to be in that discussion when he's only started 2 games, I mean, look, we've seen what he brings to the table just in that sample size of filling in for Quinn Ewers in a UTSA game last year and then the 2 starts against ULM and Mississippi State. CJ, we'll hear what Sark says about it, and we'll talk to Arch's teammates, and we'll hear from Arch. But what's got me most excited to feel like Arch can live up to the hype is the game-over-game improvements he made last year. You look at the mistakes he made against ULM, whether it was not feeling the blitz or just maybe some first-game jitters. He took some shots downfield that he said later he got greedy a little bit. Those things, the decision-making, everything got sped up a little bit. The decision-making was better in the start against Mississippi State. I know it was Mississippi State, but, CJ, just that game-to-game improvement, that sample we got last year, that's the one thing I'm clinging to that makes me feel really good that Arch can live up to the hype. What say you?
I agree, and I think we saw this a little bit immediately in those games, right? That Mississippi State game specifically, Texas struggled offensively. There were some fumbles in there. The offense didn't – there were obviously a big drop in that game as well that prevented points from being put on the board. But you saw the progressions stem from first read and then next drive, second read to, okay, I know where my checkdown's at when pressure comes. I don't have to take the sack. I don't have to scramble. I know I've got a guy in the flats or a guy awaiting an emergency pass down opportunity. And we saw that in real time. And that's stuff that, look, it takes quarterbacks a lot of time. Jeff, we just listened to Brian Kelly, the head coach at LSU, talk about why experience at the quarterback position in this conference is the most important thing that you can have on a football team. And Arch only 2 career starts, but the time that we've seen in the jump that we've seen in those 2 games, even going in later in the year in which we saw him against Texas A&M a little bit as well, I think you're going to see a very quick growth from start 1 against Ohio State to when that nitty-gritty comes of the SEC schedule. He's going to look like a different quarterback.
I've said it before, I'll say it again. I'm very excited, to say the least, to watch Arch in this offense, because keep in mind, you're replacing 4 starters on the offensive line too. You know, Arch had a lot of good things to say about Jack Endries at the Manning Passing Academy. We'll see if he goes that far with Jack Endries. CJ, I know you were there, and he said, I probably shouldn't be telling you guys this, how good Jack Endries is, but I think the secret is out at this point. But I'm excited to watch Arch grow with this offense. I want to flip it over, though, and talk Texas defense. I don't want to steal your thunder. Whit Weeks, the all-SEC linebacker, all-American linebacker from LSU, what did he say about Harold Perkins on Monday? I don't want to steal you've got the quote. I don't want to steal your thunder.
Yeah, the best defensive player in the world, not just the SEC, not even just college football, the whole world. But, hey, Harold Perkins, very talented. Whit Weeks and Perkins together, very talented linebacking duo, both coming off of injuries. Jeff, LSU's going to need both of those guys to be very healthy and play up to the level that all world might entail if LSU is going to be a team that compete in the SEC this year.
So I'll ask you this, Dylan Stewart of South Carolina is certainly in that conversation. A healthy Harold Perkins, we'll see if he can get back to the form he showed a couple of years ago. With Anthony Hill, who's going to be here on Tuesday, does Texas have the best defensive player in the SEC?
I think it's Anthony Hill. I feel pretty comfortable saying that. The snub from the Butkus Award last year, the impact, the sacks, the coverage, everything in between. I don't think there's a player right now who does more of an impact in all aspects of the game. Passing, rushing, getting after the quarterback than Anthony Hill.
Yeah, I say this about Ant Hill, with all due respect to the linebacker position, like off-ball linebacker. It's not the sexiest position in football. In terms of what the salary it commands at the NFL, how it's valued in the NFL draft. It's not a premium position. But I won't do the Rod Babers butt here, but you guys can fill in the blanks. Anthony Hill's a premium player, not a premium position. He's a premium player. So I agree with you, CJ. I think Texas, with Anthony Hill and Colin Simmons, and I kind of want to get some feedback from maybe some of the other coaches, some of the other players in this league that have seen both guys on the field. Man, Texas might have the best duo, best tandem in the box in the country with both those guys. And I know one's an off-ball linebacker, one's an edge rusher. But, man, CJ, it's been a long time since Texas has brought back 2 all-American commodities that can make the kind of impact in the defensive front that Colin Simmons and Ant Hill can make. And what have we talked about all offseason when we talk about recruiting? The 3 things you've got to focus on more than anything, and where Sark and his staff are diverting their resources. They're allocating more resources to quarterbacks, those who can protect the quarterback, and those on defense who can disrupt the quarterback. You might have the 2 best in the country. Again, Dylan Stewart, at South Carolina, there's some great ones, but I don't know that there's a better duo than Ant Hill and Colin Simmons. And hopefully we get to really dig into that this week.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And look, just a year ago, Texas saw how difficult it was to play against the defense with Jalen Walker and Mykel Williams. Obviously, Georgia has plenty of other dudes on their roster last year, but Texas is in that position this year to have just the same. And now you get an extra year of strength and training with Colin Simmons, an extra year of just the same with Anthony Hill. This should be the best that we've seen of an Anthony Hill coming into 2025. And look, if it's better than what it was last year, which was better than what it was in 2023, you're looking at an All-American level player, a guy that's going to be a game breaker. We mention that pretty often, but I'm with you. That tandem between the 2, you might be looking at 20 combined sacks, about 30, 35 tackles for loss. I don't think that there's another tandem in the country that will be able to provide exactly that. And that's what Texas is looking at almost as a baseline in terms of what we know from Colin Simmons last year and what the expectation is for him this year as well.
So we'll wrap up a little glance into SEC Media Days here in just a minute. But got to thank our sponsor for this edition of Longhorn Weekly. That's Flat Creek Estate Winery. Did you know the most awarded wine in Texas is actually the vineyard closest to Austin? That's right. Flat Creek Estate Winery, just minutes from town, and they've won award after award recently for their vintage wine, the Super Texan. That's right. The Super Texan recently at the San Francisco won the San Francisco Wine Award with a score of 98 out of 100. It was named the top red blend in the country. That's right, folks. It's not just the top red blend in Texas. The Super Texan is the top red blend in the country. It's the best in the country. It's Super Texan and other Flat Creek State wines are now available also at Specs and HEBs across the state. So make sure you hit them up. Of course, Flat Creek is also a gorgeous venue with barbecues and wine tastings every single weekend. It's perfect for a day date with your significant other, whatever your needs are, whatever you're planning on doing. Whether you just want to go pick up the wine, like we said, at your local Specs or HEB, or you want to go out to the vineyard, Flat Creek Estate Winery is the place to be. And we want to thank Flat Creek for their sponsorship and their partnership of On Texas Football. CJ, we heard from Greg Sankey, the SEC commissioner. I want to get your thoughts on two things. One, college football playoff expansion and where the SEC goes in terms of conference scheduling. I think they both kind of intertwine. College football playoff expansion, Greg Sankey said point blank, look, there's nothing binding us to expanding beyond the 12-team format. I interpreted that, CJ, and I want to get your thoughts on this. I interpreted that as, look, if everybody else doesn't agree with where the SEC and the Big Ten want to take this thing, you other guys can kick rocks because we're perfectly fine owning the college football playoff.
Yeah, and look, Greg Sankey's no stranger to doing what's best for the SEC, and obviously in his mind it's getting as many SEC teams into the college football playoff. If you looked at it last year, the SEC probably had teams number 13, number 14, and number 15 right on the outside of the college football playoff in terms of South Carolina, Alabama, LSU in that conversation. It was interesting to me, Jeff, that he said whether or not the SEC or the college football playoff expands or stays at 12, it could go to 14. It could go to 16. What does that mean later for automatic qualifiers? Is it a 5+7? Is it a 5+9? Is it a 5+11? It, to me, feels like a complete fluid world of negotiation. Of course, he is a good businessman, doesn't want to tip his hand in any matter, and he did not. But it's interesting, again, to hear that college football is going to be changing. Whether you like it or not, you don't really know if you like the 12-team playoff, if it's only here for a year or two before you get on to the next edition and rendition of college football playoff. It's just an ever-changing world.
You know, I've said this before, I'll say it again. Greg Sankey, just his demeanor, the way he commands a room, his presence, and not just dealing and stuff like this, but dealing with college athletics as a whole. It's one of the many reasons why I'm grateful Texas is done with the Big 12 and is now operating under the SEC banner. And you had Bob Bowlesby, who's flatter than a plate full of water, and Brett Yormark, who, you know, to me seems like all sizzle, very little to no steak. So Greg Sankey brings substance to the table. Texas is in good hands. CDC, Kevin Eltife, Jay Hartzell, even though he's no longer the president of Texas, they made the right call moving Texas to the SEC. I think Texas fans, I think everybody's happier for Texas being in the SEC. CJ, real quick on the future conference schedule, I know Texas, specifically Chris Del Conte, they want 9 games. They would like 9 games because if you're Texas, Oklahoma, Florida, or Georgia, you're one of those 4 teams that plays a neutral site game. You get 4 home, 4 away, and the 1 neutral. It splits nice and evenly for them. I just think it depends on expansion. I would love to see the SEC go to 9 games just because I want more quality football. But I think it all depends on playoff expansion. In other words, CJ, I think playoff expansion has to come first, and then they'll deal with the conference schedule.
I think you're right in terms of the order in which it has to get there, and I would love for it to get to 9 games. I've talked about this a lot. No one wants to watch LSU play my high school team, right? No one wants to watch that, and yet that's what we're left with basically every middle of October when a team is waiting to play their 4th non-conference game. Give me another SEC caliber game each week. Give me that slate. That's what I prefer. I think all college football fans would prefer that. But, of course, the reward for that and what the SEC and Greg Sankey view, if the SEC moves from 8 to 9 conference games, is more automatic slots in the college football playoff. Is that worthy? That's up for the commissioners in the world of the college football playoff to decide. But ultimately, Jeff, I think all college football fans would prefer better football games. And that's what you get with 9 conference games in the SEC.
All right. On Texas Football's coverage of SEC Media Days is brought to you by Vaughn Lane, Flat Creek Estate Winery, Advanced Pain Care, and South Point Dodge. And again, thanks to Flat Creek for sponsoring this edition of Longhorn Weekly. We've got everything for you here on the channel, and we got a lot more over at ontexasfootball.com. If you're not an OTF OG, that's all right. You can become one today. Get over to ontexasfootball.com right now. Use the promo code OTFOG. Sign up for a 1-year subscription. We'll get you that for $39.95. Can't beat that. $39.95 for 1 year of access at ontexasfootball.com. Just use the promo code OTFOG. Make sure you're subscribed to the On Texas Football YouTube channel. Make sure you like this video. We'll have plenty for you throughout the week here on the channel and over on the website. For CJ Vogel, I'm Jeff Howe. Thank you so much for tuning into this edition of Longhorn Weekly. And until next time, welcome.